Please excuse the following interruption. I have to update the title of the live stream. I accidentally hit start prematurely, but no big deal. If you just arrived, it is 7/6, not X Day anymore. That was yesterday, and the Xists did not arrive. Happy birthday, George W. Bush, 78 years old. Just put that in the title. Happy Bday, Dubya. One of our favorite PSYOP actors. When you realize how fake everything is, you can appreciate some of the performances by these various characters, and it takes away the idea that these are all just villains that need to be punished, but now you're looking at them as actors on the world stage. Quite a lot going on. Patriot Front, by the way, speaking of actors on the world stage, I was thinking maybe Patriot Front, because they were going around Nashville today, and people are complaining about their protests or their parades. And I'm like, Patriot Front might just mean what it sounds like. They're fronting as patriots, and they're doing cosplay. I've never seen them do anything patriotic, and I don't know if anyone else has either. If you have, fill me in. Okay, so we're live here on everything. Let me go ahead and turn on the stream. In fact, I'm just going to go ahead and proceed, and I'm going to turn on the phones in case anybody wants to call in. I mean, I could certainly get the caller queue going right now, and then we'll answer phone calls shortly. So again, today it's Infinite Plane Saturn Day, in fact. 7/6/24. And we'll go over some of the more recent developments. Right after the live stream last night, we had a number of very, very interesting follow-up comments related to what we were talking about with the RV explosion and the crisis actor there wearing the Napalm Death shirt, and Napalm being an acronym for some kind of right-wing militia that had just arisen. Yeah, here it is. Is this a MAGA militia or a clown car? Those desperate far-right grifters are trying to recruit a militia, Napalm, North American Patriot Liberty Militia. Okay, they have it. Napalm. Napalm Death, the RV exploding, and I think this was pointed out by Synchromorpheus in our Discord server, that this likely ties into the Q Warner story, where you had another Nashville connection, because that was the Nashville RV explosion. I'm going to give people a few moments to show up. I've already sent out notifications, and I sent out the archives from yesterday. I've been super busy restructuring the office to do video interviews, and I'm looking for a table. I want to do some kind of a desk set, because I'm working more on getting into the visual with our various IPR deep dive productions that are, pretty well structured, ready to go into production. We're going to be doing a number of things. Upside Down Guy says live on BitChute. I don't think BitChute has that option. They never have. Other options can be found at ips.monster. You'll find, and although everything we do here auto exports to BitChute immediately after. All right, so if you're listening on Paranormal Radio, on TuneIn, or Radio King, you can also join the chat by going to ipr.monster. So everything's been activated. Yeah, this computer goes to sleep, and when I wake it up, sometimes it just starts streaming, no warning. And instead of trying to get everybody on the same sheet and start over again, I'm just going to go ahead and just move forward with it. Open up phones again. Number's going to be on the screen momentarily. Let's go through the immediate notes, though. The Napalm Death connection. And another connection is this. So we see this actor talking about the guy in the RV blowing up, like a scene out of Breaking Bad, it looks like. And they mentioned it was like a movie. And we heard the same line regarding the July 4th shark attacks at that beach. It was like a movie. And yeah, technically it was just like Jaws, which was a shark attack 4th of July movie. And there are a number of other connections here, but the like a movie thing is just a common thing with PSYOPs. So was the shark attack a psyop? Is the RV attack a psyop? I don't know. But I noted that the Napalm Death shirt kind of stood out because the band Napalm Death is starting a tour, or they just started a tour. They're on, in fact, they're playing in the Netherlands tomorrow, I believe. And I was not aware of it until this event, so I thought, well, maybe this is a PR stunt for Napalm Death. But now that we see the Napalm Militia thing, I think it may have a more significant connection. Although likely it's all connected on some level. That's just the nature of the world stage. Okay, phones will be open here momentarily again. Just look on the screen for the number. I had a number of people who were complaining about the numbers. They said that 999 is uncomfortably close to 666. It's like, okay, well, turn your phone right side up. I mean, how is that my problem? The number phobes. We used to call out the number phobes in the early days of this channel. One of the reasons why we frequently made use of the number 33 is because we were blatantly just mocking number phobia and the number phobics, basically a church lady behavior. And ignorance and fear go hand in hand. And I'm like, why don't we understand? Let's dig deeper instead of just emoting, just reactively.
Your show will go live in 5
Okay,
seconds.
phones are open.
3, 2, 1.
563 999 3664. And let's see who's arrived. Okay, we are live 7/6/2024. Just getting started. IPS is here to add context. Just things that we think people might want to know. And that's really what this channel is about, isn't it? Context, the full context. So we were just talking about the Patriot Front, fronting as patriots, doing cosplay, and I don't think anybody has seen them doing any patriotism. Marching around waving flags isn't patriotism. Here's George Bush, 7/6/1946, 78 years old. And I made him a birthday card using the DALL-E AI art generation. It says Happy 78th with a skull and crossbones. And remember, 2 years ago, on his 76th birthday, on 7/6, the Georgia Guidestones blew up. And this was all interestingly connected to a lot of other news events at the time, including the assassination of Shinzo Abe, the former Japanese prime minister. And of course, Abe, like Abe Lincoln. This was the Japanese counterpart to Donald Trump in many ways. The two of them were very similar. In fact, he had this thing where he had blocked like 1.6 million doses of the V16, which is a number associated with the anti-establishment far right, or basically, it's in a nutshell. This was the Trumpian counterpart getting taken down, and we call him Squibby Abe because obviously it was a squib. It wasn't a real assassination. Sometimes I talk about things as though I'm believing these things to be real, but no, we are always having to add in this caveat that this is the world stage, these are performances, it's reality TV for all intents and purposes, disguised as news. There's a lot of overlap to confuse you. The media is a liar, and really good liars, skilled liars, tell the truth most of the time to gain your trust. In fact, to become your source, because they're reliable, and they lie strategically. It's not like they lie with every breath, otherwise you wouldn't trust them. Joined by Upside Down Guy, first in line. Elephant Tusks, Project Honda Rod, Ted Stryker 2112. Diana South, Elephant Tusk says, worship that demiurge. Jungle Jim. Ted Stryker says, I saw the space station earlier. JK, waiting on the hurricane to hit here tomorrow. Yeah. Well, hopefully he doesn't get hit by a space hurricane. They have those now. They have space hurricanes. They have a space hurricane is a huge funnel-like spiral geomagnetic storm above the polar ionosphere of Earth. Okay. If you want to believe that. Like Sharknadoes. Yeah, I'm sure they hypothetically could exist, I guess, if you buy into everything else. Sharknadoes are more plausible than space weather. But that's because space is, for all intents and purposes, an imaginary place. I mean, up is up. Do you know what's up there? Only what you've been told. To a certain extent, you can understand what's up there, but once you get beyond the Kármán line, it becomes a little questionable. Like, let's say space is real as described and the distances are what they say. Where are the space clouds? That's a valid question. There are tons and tons and tons of dust and debris from outer space raining down on the Earth every single day, every hour. And yet, there's not enough dust in the aggregate to occult one single star in the course of my lifetime, not one space cloud to blot out a constellation. Nope. And yet, we have a little bit of wind, and I can't see the airport 8 miles away. But there's millions and millions and millions of miles between my eyeballs and Mars in this model, and yet there's not enough dust in the aggregate to blot it out for one night. Never happened. Not in the history of observing the sky. And speaking of things that never happened, nobody's ever seen the ISS in space or floating by or floating above their heads. It's all a charade and always has been. The people who believe in it are what I call low information believers. They can't tell you how fast it's going, how it manages to stay level. They don't know its history, and we do because we are informed non-believers. And we informed non-believers know more about the things we don't believe in than the believers do. And yet they take the opposite position. But that's because they're on the wrong side of the screen. All right, joined by Dua Simpera. Oh, sure, oh 06, Lean Dion. Oh, okay. Okay, Upside Down Guy says BitChute has started live streaming. Okay, I'll jump right on board. I didn't know that. Says here, we don't have a confirmed date, but we're working on it and we've undertaken a successful test. Okay, that's a big deal. Thank you for letting me know. I've been very pleased with BitChute. I just haven't relied on them heavily. Although most of the commenters there are mad, angry neo-Nazi types, and they always hate me, which I don't care. I'll read your comments. I'm not trying to win an election here. This is about the truth, and a lot of the time, truth doesn't care about your feelings. So here's an example. Alexander Flanagan says on the video, IPS Morning Deprogram 7/5/2024, this liar is so fake, he will never touch the real issues. And what does he mean by this? What are the real issues that I'm covering up? Like, what aren't I? I don't understand. Unless he thinks, which is what I'm kind of assuming here, because he's on BitChute, maybe I'm not spending enough time talking about race realism and my white genocide. And it's like, if you're worried about white genocide, you shouldn't be on the internet. You should be on dating apps. There's some work to do if you want to win this population race or whatever it is you're trying to do. But, I have nothing to do with that. But their opinion is if you don't have anything to do with it, you're committing genocide against them. So I'm committing white genocide right now because I'm talking about fake moon landings. Such victim consciousness, and it's so pervasive, and it's laughable at this point. It's like, cool, you got something to worry. You have a fake issue to care about because your life is so comfortable. You can fake care about it on the internet and virtue signal all day, like cloud shouters. Like, you spend all day shouting at clouds, chemtrail enthusiasts. Hey, that's fine. But it just tells me that you don't have any real trouble in life. You don't have any real problems. Nothing else that deserves your attention, so you shout at clouds. It's funny. It's a steam valve. Maybe that's what chemtrails are. It's just the steam. It's just not literally a steam valve, but like, what I mean? It's like, it's just something to scapegoat. Like, this is why. And they do. They come up with all kinds of ways, this to project. And a lot of it could be, if you ask me again, kind of a cathartic release. Something to point a finger at that's tangible. Because unlike other conspiracy theories, at least with chemtrails, you can point to something. Oh, by the way, tomorrow we're going to be on Fakeologist Live, and we're going to take phone calls. But I stipulated to Fakeologist that we're not going to take calls from people who want to talk about chemtrails unless, and this is the only way, unless they provide their own evidence. But we're not going to allow just cloud shouters repeating memes. None of this see-say, hearsay. No thanks. And also, I think Dave J tweeted me a little while ago, and last time he called in, he was just being extremely rude and obnoxious. Here he said, be sure to call out my great work when you're on the show tomorrow on the Fakeologist Network. Word on the street. is that you'll be on the show tomorrow. Be blessed indeed. That's Dave J, who was very nasty on my last visit to the fakeologist. And speaking of word on the street, this is not pareidolia. This is real. I was out at a grocery store and I was leaving, and I noticed that the tar in the asphalt makes a perfect, this is perfect, contour profile of Donald Trump. There's his hair, there's his nose, there's his puckered lips, there's his chin, his neck, his suit, and it even goes into the chest. I did a whole video of it, and I might geotag it. I imagine a lot of MAGAs would like to come down here and take a picture next to it. They can't erase it, so this is definitely like street art, but who put it there? And, I'm just walking around. I'm like, why am I seeing Donald Trump in the parking lot? Okay, but anyway, yeah, tomorrow, Fakeologist, if you're on the newsletter, you'll get notifications. All right, continuing. Ollie Goering says the new autohoaxology track makes me think of a beautiful, happy meadow with cute, fluffy animals like baby lammies. Yeah, I can see that. The new autohoaxology song by Symbia has those qualities. And you listen to some of these songs, like Autohoax, Chief Crow. What they're conveying is ataraxia, peace of mind, quiescence, stepping out of the mind war. And that's what we're doing here. We're conscientious objectors to the Psy war. You're not anti-war if you haven't stepped on this side of the screen. We have the vantage point that they don't, which gives us the moral and intellectual high ground. And they think that because they're engaging in war, they're somehow morally superior. Oh, if you're not angry, you're not paying attention. If you're not ready to go to war against the New World Order, you're not a real truther, you're an embarrassment. If you have a driver's license, you're not fighting the power. I hear this stuff, and it's like, I'm not. And you know who figured this out a long time ago is David Icke. He used to say, you don't beat war with war, you what was it? I got to find his exact expression, but he was talking about this mentality of how the resistance itself is, and I talk about it too, that when you're resisting it, when you're the counter, you're the knee-jerk reaction to the mainstream, you're part of a dialectic. And so the real position here to take is the off-world stage, that you have to go the peacenik route. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. That's where this channel has always been. I mean, it's a think tank. We are in a tank, and it does have a turret, but that's purely for self-defense. And that's because if we didn't have this, we wouldn't be able to have these conversations. The reason why I handed out moderator wrenches to hundreds of people when this channel started is that we needed a fence. We needed a barrier to keep people out who weren't trying to add constructively to our conversations. But anyway, my point is, what we represent here, what we're pointing out, is that there's a built-in perpetual war within the world stage model they give us, and you can step out of it. And to do so through skepticism is to unplug from giving an F about things you can't test or verify. And if you look at how much manipulation there is through media, propaganda, and everything else, it's endless. It's an endless, what do you call it? A loosh harvest. And truthers are the most triggered people next to the wokesters. They're all triggered. Why are they so triggered? Why are they mad that I don't believe in chemtrails? They don't have peace of mind. They're not there in the happy meadows with baby lammies. Diana South says, Christmas Day RV Explosion, Tennessee 2021. Yeah, that's the one with AQ Warner. And the RV had this speaker on top that was early June. Oh no, it was now early June, half a year after. This is the article. It says, Christmas Day bombing ripped a hole in the heart of Music City's downtown. The RV had been intentionally detonated, killing the bomber and three others, forcing 60 businesses to close. But his name, AQ Warner, and I think they found his ID, probably printed at the same place that did the 9/11 passports. All right, but yeah, there may be some connections to the recent RV explosion, which we'll talk about. Mango Penguin says, these are the frog days of summer. Yeah, we've been talking about the significance of the dog days, and Sirius, the dog star, and the scorcher. The word scorcher is constantly being used, but how we've been seeing these stories of The scorched barbecued dog that RFK Jr. was taking a bite out of, the dog that turned on the stove and set the house on fire in Colorado. Project Hondarod said, I saw on space.com they're officially talking about bringing down the ISS. You called it. Well, I was basing this off of the Metascript. I was basing this off of what they've been telegraphing through everything. Netflix, everything in Netflix I was watching was like, whoa, the Ark in space in the 100 falls down. Season 1, episode 13. There's that 113 connection. Then I'm watching Raised by Wolves on HBO, directed by, I think it's Ridley Scott. Really good series. And in that one, they have another space ark that falls. And I'm like, what's with all these space arcs falling? And Wall-E, which is all about Directive 113, was about a space arc. Well, the ISS falling is part of a symbolic sacrifice, and I said that it would be immolated, it would burn like the Challenger, and that you have these foundational sacrifices that all seem to involve immolation. Think about it, the Apollo launch pad incineration of a few astronauts, then you have the Challenger incineration. You have the Columbia one. Now get this, the Columbia explosion was the 113th shuttle launch. The Challenger exploded at 1 minute, 13 seconds. The One World Tower that was built in the ashes of the incinerated towers opened on 113. Just some of the connections to the 113 in this repeated theme. And I have a number of mind maps on this, but extrapolating on this, I was like, look, there's a connection here. Before we go to space, we have this burning sacrifice of Yuri Gagarin. I mean, Yuri Gagarin is the first man in space, and then he dies a fiery death. So there's this theme. And then before we go to the moon, rather, we have the lunar tragedy with these individuals being incinerated. And then before we go into low Earth orbit and build a space station, we have the Challenger incineration. And so what I was suggesting here is that before we get to occupy the moon or Mars, that present stage represented by the space station is going to have to incinerate. And that this is a series of markers, milestones, foundational sacrifices, but there's a pattern. And based on the pre-existing pattern, I had predicted more or less that the space station would go down in flames. And now it's being said that Musk is in fact going to be paid $843 million to do just that. Build some kind of space tugboat and yank it down. Okay, continuing, going through your comments. Give me just a moment here. I really am getting a lot of people. Yeah, $843 million. That's how much he's being paid for this. And you can totally trust him. He's fighting for your free speech. He's on your side. He's one of the people. He's a populist. And he's fighting the establishment like Tucker Carlson. All right, we are joined by MC Dirty Work, Flat Fact, Ears Up. Mango says, did Goldfinch respond? No, he actually did not respond. And it's been more than 30 days, so I'm submitting a motion for default judgment on Monday. I have to call Google first. There's this rule in the Superior Courts of California, civil rules of procedure, where you have to make an effort to talk to them and tell them what you're going to do before you do it with every one of these motions. And I don't like talking to them because they're nice to me on the phone, and then they basically kind of do a 180 with everything they write. But anyway, that's how they're supposed to be, I understand. I'm not trying to make friends with them. But they seemed really shocked when I brought up what I plan to do with regard to bringing in an additional John Doe defendant. And they did kind of weakly ask me, are you willing to drop us and just make this about Goldfinch? And I'm like, well, no, I'm sorry, because this is negligence, no matter his intention or the intention of the insider. But we'll get some answers here soon. Upside Down Guy says, I don't see, yeah, you see it. You see Trump, right? Elephant Tusk says, did Trump live rent-free in Tim's head? No, I wasn't even thinking about Trump. I mean, maybe he does. I guess, you know what? This is how powerful it is. Ted Stryker says, Dave J is J for joke. It's Dave Johnson. He's the guy who discovered or popularized the notion that Kate Perry is JonBenet Ramsey. But he's also a hardcore transvestigationologist, so you know where his head's at. Lean Dion says new UK Prime Minister Starmer moving his dog into Downing Street. Mango says crazy. Teaching dogs to cook would be cool, but to commit arson, come on. Yeah, anything dog right now is suspect, and just keep an eye out for it. You'll note it. They do this pretty. I think maybe it's more routine than we think. In fact, I can go back through the mind maps and show how yeah there is this tendency to note the pagan uh, holidays under the cover of something secular, like a Super Bowl halftime show. In fact, I just picked up a book today called The Pagan Book of Days, a guide to the festivals, traditions, and sacred days of the years by Nigel Pennick. I picked this up at a used bookstore. I just grabbed this book and it has a day by day and it tells you about all the different festivals from different traditions that are associated with it. And so I'm going to be incorporating this into my research. I'm not going to read it cover to cover, but I'll just go concurrently. So, for example, tomorrow is the Roman festival that commemorates Consus, the god of harvests, festival of handmaids, or the Maids' Day Out, when the maids of Rome were beyond the control of their mistresses, and a few other things. But anyway, I'll be going through that. I'm always looking for research material. And I think there's a point where we have to recognize that, yes, the mainstream media is the de facto world state church. But weirdly, and this is them, not on us, we're just pointing it out, it is pretty evident that there is an exoteric and an esoteric, as there is with traditional religions, which makes sense considering this is the replacement faith. I had this conversation with someone today about this. They were saying it seems like they're trying to phase out older religions. And yeah, that's part of it as they bring in a replacement faith. And I always remark how the most fundamentalist religious people today who live in the end times, who believe in neo eschatology, the most judgy people who think they're saved and that they're literally going to heaven, are the atheists. And all their God constructs with their secular priesthood and their Church of Scientism and Nasatology, they're the most religious people out there. And are they getting rid of the old? Well, they're certainly driving a wedge, and they're, I think, in a way, deepening the schism. And I'm not quite sure. I don't think they want to eliminate one, because I think that the division is part of what keeps this thing moving. Ryler05 says, my house shook in Texas when Columbia exploded. The pieces handed in the 903 area code. Okay, Columbia. Now, there might have been some connection with the Columbia explosion. And let me take a look if I can find this. I remember seeing something about the Columbia explosion and where the different parts landed. I'll probably get into this later, but I don't want to divert myself on live research. But there's quite a lot about it, and I think there was something that might have been a connection to East Palestine. Anyway, we'll get back to that. I happen to think that the explosions, even the one we recently saw in China, where their SpaceX and imitation rocket blew up, these are all rituals involving the obelisk, the earth god, solar deities, and sun worship. And that's the esoteric behind the scenes. NASA is an Egyptian mystery school. The rocket is an obelisk. It's not a vehicle to take you to space. It's all pageantry and theatrics. And the scale of it is just difficult to accept, but it is the truth. Tomanoid says, it's okay, China can put a secret space station on the dark side of the moon. True Earth says, pool station. Yeah, the International Pool Station. And this is something that I'm going to point out in our IPR deep dive on the subject, that if you compare underwater scuba diver footage at night, where they're watching manta rays, at the bottom of a lake or something, you'll find that the quality of the light diffusion, is comparable to what you see on spacewalks. And then you can compare the spacewalk video, where the light is diffused and limited, to their photography, where it's seemingly crystal clear as far as you can perceive. And what's the difference? Well, they're doing it underwater, and underwater there's a lot of light loss. And so the light loss on the ISS spacewalks is exactly consistent with what you would see underwater. So Occam's razor, what's more likely? That they're in space, 17,000 miles per hour, just fiddling around on the outside of the space station, or are they filming it in the pool where they train with the lights off, as evidence suggests? And if you're on the side that believes the ISS is real, one of two things must be true. One, you're a low information believer and you haven't looked into it. Or two, you can't tell the difference between real and fake when it comes to special effects. And it's pretty bad considering that their special effects are like, I would date them at 2010. Their green screen, their AVR, it's pretty bad. And it doesn't make sense. It's got to be the symptom of cognitive dissonance, because if you compare the graphics on the ISS, the special effects, to what you see in science fiction, the science fiction looks realer by orders of magnitude. They've mastered it. And yet, what NASA has is just kind of clunky and unimpressive. In fact, I was looking at the Chinese space station thinking it was going to be an improvement, but it's even jankier. I've been saying this before. It's like they obviously ordered their space station from Wish. But yeah, of course, it's going to be on the dark side of the moon, the far side. It's going to be somewhere where we can't see it conveniently. Like, that's all you would have to, if you wanted to just shut this flat Earth topic up, shut up any criticism of NASA, just put some kind of a logo on the moon that faces us. Just do something. Just something to suggest that it's possible to land on the thing. But it's just so convenient that they're going to put it out of sight, out of mind. Kind of like that James Webb telescope where they hoaxed us, where they took a picture of a piece of churroso and put it on a starry background that itself looked fake. And they said, look at this new star we found. It's 4.2 trillion light years away. And people loved it. Some people wept. They thought it was the most beautiful star they'd ever seen. Then they found out it was a piece of meat. And this joke exposed what I think is the major blind spot, the faith that people put in what they see on the screen. It exposed them. The only people that didn't fall for it, paradoxically, were the flat earthers. They were the only ones who were right about it. It's not even hard to understand why. It's because they've lost faith. And that's why they're hated. The flat earthers, the people who question NASA, have lost faith in what is on the screen. They don't have the level of trust. And that level of trust is naive. That credulity is it's gullible and it's not warranted today. It's actually unintelligent. It means that you don't have the situational awareness to know that this place is run by liars who are capable at lying at a scale that most people aren't willing to comprehend or even just confront. Why would they lie? I hear people ask. It's hilarious. It's like, have you been around this place a little bit? I mean, it's just, to me, it's common sense. And we talked about this yesterday. Some people are like, well, they know they lie on history, they fake the news, but no way they would lie about cartography and the maps. All right, moving on. Ted Stryker says goldfinch is now officially in hot water, good for IPS. Yeah, it's true. He left a trail. I was able to have him serve through the company, ICU LLC. And he can't deny that he's part of that company. He's actively engaged in fundraisers. He actually put his face. He's such a Trump lackey and a copycat, whatever it is. Trump's mugshot gets released, and so he releases a Trump mugshot. And the same day, he puts his own face on a shirt to raise money for Marco Polo, ICU LLC, Garrett Ziegler's company. He's the hacker for the company. He's their hacker that hacked Hunter Biden's computer. And his Stripe account is handling that money. This is all going to be revealed in discovery very soon. Garrett Ziegler is done, and this could be really bad. In fact, I think it's getting worse for them now because now Hunter is suing Fox News for using the contents of that laptop to create some fake trial reality TV show about convicting Hunter. But yes, I would say that being a defendant in a case like this, where there's email evidence convicting you of fraud, complete with a confession and an explanation of one's methodology and a malicious intent all in there, and to not show up, yeah, I think it's inviting something, and I'm going to find out what. And I've already made my wishes clear in my response, my last motion, where I said I think this needs to go to the FBI. I think that the person at Google needs to go to jail and Goldfinch. I mean, I explained it clearer, but I suggested that that's where this must go ultimately. The only reason I went civil is a couple of years of goading the FBI and law enforcement did nothing. So I realized, I'll just go civil first, and then once I have him squarely in the uh, crosshairs of the court and he can't back out of it, and there's a dialogue, then we can move forward with the other stuff if the judge has the power that I don't have. I mean, I don't have the influence. Okay, moving on. Trump lives rent free in every English speakers right now, Ollie Goring. Yes. And the real Trump derangement syndrome is on the right. And it's just from years of hopium addiction. And if you want to know how people stick with these things, how do you remain stuck in a cult, or how do you deal with constant disappointment when it comes to prophecies not coming true? I think it comes down to intermittent reinforcement, like with gambling addictions, that it's kind of strange, but the failures actually make the addiction stronger and make them crave the success even more. And then any tiny success, a little breadcrumb, is enough to reinvigorate the entire addiction itself. Like last night, there was this viral story shared by the conspiracy theorist troll Laura Loomer, who said that Biden was having a medical emergency. And she got her, she wouldn't name her source, but I'm pretty sure it was just some 4chan meme. But whatever the case, she was spreading this idea, this meme, that Biden was having this medical emergency. And then out of the woodworks, everyone's like, Q said this would happen. And all these people are sharing it. She got 16 million hits. And you see endless just emojis of American flags and popcorn. And the whole crowd, they're like zombies, just back from the dead. Then she got fact checked, and they haven't been able to verify it, and she's fighting for her integrity. And whatever it is, they're so desperate for breadcrumbs, and they see a breadcrumb and they just run for it. It's sad. Okay, moving on. Today is a new moon. The new moon was last night. It was a new moon in Capricorn. JDig77, good day for a psyop? Absolutely. And I think there's a number of famous psyops. In fact, I'm already doing this. I have it in my template. I'll just explain it. In the IPS Insider, which is a tabloid that is going to be released this month and every month thereafter, primarily in digital, but I'll have it available for print on demand. And I'm working on ways to distribute it. And I think the best way is going to be likely eBay. But anyway, my point and I'll have the back catalog on Amazon. But anyway, I'm going to have a calendar in there, like for Hoaxiversaries, for dates. So each month you'll have a calendar for, this is July. These are all the psyops of the past that were notable, and I'll embellish it in various ways. And I have a few ideas. QR codes that link to relevant podcasts or downloadable MP3 files. I'm making this IPS Insider very much a bridge between the meatverse and the metaverse. But I do think we need a calendar. But it'll be a monthly thing, and we can start kind of putting these things together. I don't want to miss any important birthdays or hoaxiversaries. And a lot of these psyops, of course, relate to other psyops. Look at the Maxwell Azrello. The guy sets himself on fire next to the hot dog stand, right next to the Trump trial. Well, that was on 4/19. That was a Waco anniversary. Another Burning Man, Dave Koresh. And that was the anniversary of Timothy McVeigh's burning or blowing up of the Oklahoma City Fred Murray building. So you're looking at these overlapping connections. And I've made connections here before between all these different fiery deaths, and it's really an indicator that these dates matter, and we have to watch these dates. Which makes sense. We're talking about a astrotheological cult. Upside Down Guy says a lot of people have filmed the ISS. A lot of people have heard Bigfoot and Sasquatch and their mating calls. It's not an argument, and I told Fakeologist, I'm not taking calls from any chemtrail enthusiasts if they don't have their own evidence. So unless you know, quote, a lot of people, your evidence doesn't count. Who's a lot of people? Show me one, please. Mango says the stars are bright in New Mexico tonight. Shannon says checking in. Thank you. Ryler05 says normies always ask the same question, why? Why would he do this? Why would they do that? What's the reason? They cannot comprehend why. They always, yeah, Elephant Tusk says they always ask, who is they? Well, there's a point here, though. The they assumes bad people with bad intentions. And if you accept this as an operating premise, it becomes very easy to make the appeal to motive. Like they would do this just because they're bad. And that's not a good enough explanation. There's this really weak explanation. Why would they lie about the shape of the world? To hide God is what they usually say. And these aren't really good explanations because that explanation says it's this motivation. They're evil, they want to hide good. It's like, I don't know, maybe it's a little more nuanced than just good and evil. But these are, valid questions. Why would they do this? And the reason why good people ask these questions, we say normies, I just mean good people. It's because people don't think like liars and manipulators and psychological warfare operatives think. That's why. These world stage psyop entertainment complex operatives are manipulators. We're talking about marketing, propaganda, covert persuasion, and psychological operations as a standard operating procedure. Like Truman, look at the Truman Show. The guy looks happy and he's blissfully ignorant, but if you think about it, he's a prisoner of mind war and it's just an invisible cage, so he's not openly resisting. So why would they do it? I do have an explanation, and I put this in Secret Religion of the Elite, and it has to do with using the pageantry and the superstitions to control the populations. For example, give them a God construct. What if we believed, as a society, what if everybody in the world believed that if we get too aggressive and warlike with one another, that the war god's going to come and he's going to wipe us all out? And this war god appears as a giant mushroom cloud and then a bright flash, and he blocks out the sun. You see how effective that would be? Hey, we got to calm down, we got to disarm, we got to talk peace because the war god. Or the weather gods, like for example, Gaia. If we don't cut back on our consumption and recycle more and adopt liberal policies, the earth god is going to cause the oceans to rise and swallow us up. That's just an Old Testament myth rebranded as science, but it's pageantry, it's superstition, it's false models, and it's fooling the quote scientific people of the world. If you're not convinced we're in the end times, you're not trusting the science. Shame on you. That's what I'm saying. Like I don't believe the science, so it doesn't affect me. You shouldn't believe in science anyway. You should know. Science is a methodology for determining what's real by reality testing through methodology. It's not a belief system. We just trust the guy wearing the costume, the smock. Infinite Plane Radio. Hey, what's up, caller? Thank you for calling.
Hey, dude, it's Jurassic.
Hey, what's up, Jurassic? What? Oh, did you see the Donald Trump profile in the asphalt in front of me?
No, I missed that. I just got in. I just heard you like 5 minutes ago.
Okay, you'll probably see it later. It's not a big deal. I just happened to be walking through a Walmart parking lot, and in the asphalt, I saw this profile of Donald Trump's face, and it's in
Oh,
the tar.
the one that's on the screen right now.
Yeah,
The one that's on the screen right now.
that's the one.
Oh yeah, yeah. I kind of see it. I kind of see it. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it's there. I
funny.
got a video of it
Yeah,
too.
it looks like Ohio too.
Yep.
And, uh, yeah. So you know where I'm saying Trump's going to get his head wound, right?
Uh, where on the oh, in Ohio. Yes, you've mentioned Ohio. Why don't you explain why?
Yeah. Well, well, it came supernatural that too. It just for some reason I just had this feeling that it was going to be Ohio because I saw some weird um, story on television, and all of a sudden this feeling came over me saying that what's this? Something about this story. And what was weird, it was a guy who was breaking into the ceiling of a jail cell or some jail thing. It was the weirdest thing how I came up with that. And once I said that it was Ohio, that he was going to get his head wound, every single piece of the puzzle fit with Trump. Okay, but first I just want to make sure that your viewers know that it's August 4th that Trump's head wound. Okay,
Yeah, and August 4th is a very important
and
date, 216th day of the year. That's a key number. And it all ties into Mark of the Beast. 6 times 6 times 6 is 216. And isn't 216 the area code in Cleveland?
yes, it's Cleveland, Ohio, right? And it's also Obama's birthday, and that's why Obama was the president before Trump, you know, and he has to connect to the 44-45 because Trump is the 44th person to become president, but he's the 45th actual president to take office. So Trump is the 44-45, and that's why Obama is the 44th president. He had to have a connection to the August 4th, and that's why he was the president, because Trump's going to get his head one on Obama's birthday, right? But I want to focus on the Ohio thing. So Ohio is the 17th state, right? And what's funny is, as soon as I was talking about Ohio, where he was going to get his head wound, all these things started happening with Ohio. Like, Ohio's been in the news ever since I started saying it. And I mean, could it be possible that I'm just noticing it more? Yeah. But real big stories came out of Ohio after I started talking about Ohio, where Trump's going to get his head one on August 4th. And this has been like the last 5 years. As I told you, next year is the last year that I'll be talking about this, my two predictions. But most likely he'll get it this year. But if it doesn't happen, then next year is the final year. But I'm pretty sure it's going to be this year. But look, so when I started talking about Ohio, they were all these stories started coming about it, and then people started talking about how everything's connected to Trump was connected to the 17 because of that stupid Q,
Yeah, yeah. In
you
fact,
know?
yeah, the 17th
Yeah.
letter Q, and I've considered this that maybe Q could be connected to your story here, and to this narrative in some way, but they've taken it in some wild directions. But what do you make of that? The 17, that's 17th state.
Well, yeah, yeah. So Ohio's the 17th state. You have the Q connection, which is the 17th letter, and JFK, of course, his burial site looks like that Q, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I've seen that.
Yeah, yeah, right. And of course, JFK is the guy who got the head wound. And JFK's birthday, 5/29, is the backwards date of August 4th, right? You know that, right?
Okay, wait, explain this one because this connection is huge. I remember you explained this before, but yeah, JFK's birthday, 529, which is fascinating for a few reasons, because that's of course Hinckley's
Okay.
birthday. But yeah, how do you explain it to the being the reverse of 8-4?
Yeah. Yeah. This is how you get a reverse date. Whatever days remain from whatever date you choose, the date remaining, how many days remain in the year, that would be its reverse date. So 5/29 is the 149th day of the year on a regular year. It's 149th day of the year, and it leaves 216 days in the year. The 216th day of the year is August 4th.
Okay, okay, I
Do you
see.
get it?
Yeah, yeah, 216 remaining. I gotcha. And by the way,
Yeah.
so I've
So
looked into these numbers extensively and the connections between JFK, the Kennedys, and Kubrick's films, among other things. And it turns out that the Trinity site, where they detonated the first nuclear weapon, the very first detonation was at 5:29 a.m. So that number's thrown in there.
wow.
And
Okay.
so I've been looking at these, and the date though was 7/16. And 7/16 is the date that Apollo 11 took off. It was the date JFK Jr. died, and it was the release date of Eyes Wide Shut. So just all these interesting Kennedy Kubrick connections,
Well,
and just like wow, it even attaches to the nuke.
well, Elvis died 7 months, 16 days into the year. You know, August 16th is 7 months, 16 days into the year.
Right, right.
And right, but let me just tell you this about the 17th. So JFK's birthday is the backwards date of Trump's head wound. So the guy who got the head wound, his backwards date is August 4th, and that's when I'm telling you everybody that Trump's gonna get his head wound, right? And and I told you Ohio's the 17th state. You have the Q connection, which is the 17th letter, and then you have the fact that 529 JFK's birthday is 17 days from Trump's birthday, 614.
I see.
That's
I
another
see.
connection. Okay, but here's the big connection: 17 years from uh, from Trump's birthday to JFK is 17 from the day JFK was killed. So 17 years in between. You know.
Okay, okay. Now this is intriguing, and someone in the chat mentioned something because like what we're talking about here is consistent and it's systemic. It's built into this. I was looking at these 33-year-olds who set themselves on fire in front of the White House, 33 years apart, and we get into the nuance of it, and we're like, okay, obviously we're looking at something that's scripted, and however you want to explain it, whatever your interpretation, the fact of it is the facts are the facts. And if these alignments, if these patterns are consistent, to me they're worth examining. And so I appreciate you bringing these additional points here to clarify. And everything you're saying about the Obama-Trump relationship is 100% reflected in all of the mainstream Netflix shows, including an Obama character in the form of the mayor of Chicago in A Man in Full, who brings down the Trump guy who dies at the end. Like this is just so deep into the collective psyche right
Wow.
now. It's deep.
Yeah, that's incredible. And um, man, there was one another big connection. Why can't I think of it? Go ahead. Go
Okay,
ahead.
well,
Say something.
okay,
My
well,
brain
we're
just went out.
talking about the recently. I was talking about the Abe Shinzo assassination, and he was connected to Trump, and that was a couple of days after the Georgia Guidestones blew up on George W. Bush's birthday. And if you remember the Georgia Guidestones from the top, it formed a skull and crossbones. You have the capstone and the four pillars. And the way that it was blown up with the fireworks, whatever, the firecrackers, whatever they used, cherry bombs, it didn't look like a significant explosion. But it correlates to what would be a head wound on the skull. And the connection here, Georgia, George W. Bush, Skull and Bones Society, and then it's just replete with references to the number 76 and 42. But I was thinking there might be some connection here to this general assassination theme, and a lot of people have connected George Herbert Walker Bush to the JFK assassination. So there's that connection. And again, it all has to do with skull and bones and this head wound on the capstone um, during this the same week 2 years ago, and then right after it was followed by the Shinzo assassination, and then a couple days before you had the 7/4, the Fourth of July parade shooting by the guy who venerated Lee Harvey Oswald and used to go to Trump rallies. So this theme has just been in the air repeatedly. So anyway, go ahead and continue. I know we were talking about Ohio and the number 17.
Well, now that you brought up the Guidestones thing, and I'll come back to the 17 thing, but the Georgia Guidestones, uh, that you're right. It was like a head wound, and the fact that it has the George in it connects to the Washington state because they're going to destroy Washington. That's why they're on June 11th. They're going to destroy Washington, and that's why they destroyed the Guidestones. It's like they're saying that they're going to destroy Georgia. I mean George. That's what they're saying, um, and of course it connects to Elvis because Elvis died at the age of 42. Washington's the 42nd state, and it was brought down 42 years after it was built. The Guidestones.
Yeah, that's another key here. 42 years after it was built, and they appeared on 3/22, 1980, which is an obvious Skull and Bones Society connection. And the Skull and
Right.
Bones is one of these. symbols for the Templars, and when you get into the symbolism of the assassinations, it all ties in.
Right. And Elvis was 45 that year. If he was alive, he would have been 45 years old when the Guidestones went up. So that's another connection to Trump, because I told you everything connecting to Trump connects to Elvis because they're the Janus two-faced God,
Right.
with that. But yeah, if you have more on the Guidestones, I mean, I have lots on the Guidestones too, but I have to look through it. I'll give you an example. I don't know if you can look this up and bring it up. Elvis's hospital where he was pronounced dead, it looks just like the Guidestones, the building. I don't know if you're going to be able to bring it up.
Yeah, I can bring it
I
up.
think it's called
But so
the
the
mem.
yeah
I think
the
it's called
hospital where Elvis died is called the Baptist Hospital. He died at he was
Memphis.
pronounced dead at 3:30 p.m. Interesting.
Right. Hmm.
So the Baptist Hospital looks exactly
You
like the
need a
freaking Guidestones. I'm looking at it right now. This is hilarious. This is good. I mean, you pointed
right.
out too that the International Hotel in Vegas looked like the space station without the UFO on top, which it does. And it has a
You mean
three
the Space Needle?
the
You mean
Space
the
Needle
Space
rather.
Needle?
Yeah, the Space
You mean
Needle.
the Space?
And so the
Yeah.
Space
Hmm.
Needle looks like the International Hotel. And when I watched the movie, I noticed that very clearly. But
Yep.
in the movie, they put the
Yep.
starship, as in Starship, Star Trek, Starship Enterprise, on a billboard on top of that sign, which turned it into a Space Needle at the very beginning of the movie. I don't know if you noticed that, but
I,
anyway,
I probably forgot because I only saw that movie once, so I can't remember now. But yeah,
yeah, I only had time to
uh,
watch it once. But what I
so they
do, I go into these movie theaters with a notebook, and I had to take notes because I realize this is programming, and I'm trying to be actively engaged with it. And I'm comparing the two, the Baptist Union Hospital and the Georgia Guidestones, and it's literally the same thing, same design. That's a fascinating find.
yes, and, and of course the 322 connects to Elvis, which I've been explaining that his TCB, taking care of business thing.
Yeah.
Do you know his motto was TCB? That TCB. If you look on if you go to TCB Elvis airplane, if you type that in, you'll see it says, um, you'll see that the way he writes the TCB, he puts the C on the top, then the T on the lower part, and then the B. So it's CTB instead of the way it's said, taking care of business, which is TCB. That's his motto, right?
I see that.
And CTB is it's 322, the letters.
I see that.
CTB is 320. Yeah. So it's 322. And he's got a lightning bolt, which is, falling for, like Satan falling like lightning.
Yeah, or David Bowie with the lightning on his face, the man who fell to earth, who has Elvis's birthday.
Right, right.
Yeah, that's a big one, the lightning. And I mentioned this
So the
before,
C's on the top. So
and the C's on top, which changes the meaning of it, the interpretation. So, uh,
right, it's 322. It's 322. C is 3, T is 20, B is 2, right? And in 1946, who were the three presidents that were born? It was Clinton, Trump, and Bush.
oh,
So
that's
those
funny.
three clowns, yeah, that's their last name, Clinton, Trump, Bush.
Well, the Elvis movie starts out where he's a kid and he's wearing a big lightning bolt around his neck. And the trailer before the movie started was Black Adam with The Rock, who has a lightning bolt on his chest and he's descending from the celestial realms to save the world. So the man who fell to earth, Black Rock, these are all code, and the lightning bolt definitely consistent. Fascinating here, very very fascinating.
Yeah, yeah. But just real quick, if you want to get off that topic of the Guidestones, because I'm telling you that Elvis is the Skull and Bones. He really is the Skull and Bones guy. And by the way, if you look at the sequence of 322, what would be the numbers that would come before that? It would be 222, and then 122. So if you counted 122, 222, and then 322, you get 666.
I see that.
Do you get
Interesting.
what I'm saying?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. And a third of the, and supposedly a third of the angels were thrown out. So you count a third of 222, get it? Like 3222s. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Like 222 three times would be 666. So a third, let's say one third of it left, a third. So that's why they need that 322 to get back to the 666. But forget about that. But anyway,
Well, no, anyway, this is relevant, and
the
I'm glad you
Texas,
pointed out the Guidestone resemblance of the hospital. That is amazing to me. But 322 happens to be the date that the Templars were disbanded in 1312. And this is significant because the Templars resurface as the Freemasons, but the Skull and Bones Society, Chapter 322, is considered to be an offshoot of or branch of the Templars.
yeah, that's incredible. But you know what? The reason that hospital is so important because it was demolished. See, that's why I brought that up. Because just like the Guidestones were, you know, taken down, if you know what I'm saying, uh, it was also demolished.
Okay, I didn't know
The
that. Okay, so
that
the hospital where
yeah.
Elvis was died was demolished. Okay,
You want to know what day?
tell me what day.
Well, you don't want to look it up. You can look it up. It's up to you. I'll tell you if you want.
Yeah, I'm looking at the image of it right now. I'm looking it up, but here we go. Sunday, November the 6th. So 116, 2005 in Memphis.
11. Get it? 6/11/25. That's next year. 6/11/25.
11/6 is the date Gotham goes underwater in the latest Batman movie. And yeah, very fascinating
Yeah,
here.
but they mean 6/11, not 11/6. But you get what I'm saying. It's June 11, not November. But it was demolished on 11/6,
11/6,
2005,
6/11, Seattle, 11/6, 6. Yeah, these are
25.
reversible, and yeah, so that's a pretty solid connection here. The resemblance in the architecture to the Guidestones, the collapse, and the 6/11 and 11/6 link here. This is intriguing, and I was also noting here, and I put this up on the screen, that it has to do with the here it is, the significance of the skull and bones. It says, with the Masonic Knights Templar, the skull and bones is one of their symbols as well, and it symbolizes Golgotha among other things. But it's a skull and bones has long been a Templar thing. So just another connection here to everything else. And they're
And you want
yeah, go ahead.
and what's interesting is between 11/6 and 6/11 is 7 months 6 days. Because you were just saying the 7/6 it went down, right? The Guidestone. Yeah.
I see. I see.
Um, yeah,
Fascinating.
but there was one. So no, I have one more thing. If we're done with the Guidestones thing, I have to go back to that JFK 17 thing. It's huge. This
Yeah, we're done.
connection.
I'm glad you brought this
Uh,
up though, because I made it a point today to talk about the Georgia Guidestones because this is the 2-year anniversary of their destruction. And so I'm glad you were able to chime in here with some additional info connecting to their destruction. I mean, this is fascinating. But yeah, let's go on to the 17 and anything
okay.
else.
So all right. Here's the huge connection. Huge. So um, so let me just. So when JFK was killed in 1963, supposedly killed in 1963, that year, Elvis was 28 years old, Trump was 17. Okay, so 28 and 17. And where am I telling you Trump's going to get his head wound? In Ohio, right? Which is the 17th state, right?
Gotcha.
And where did JFK get killed?
Texas, Dallas, Texas, Dealey
Te-
Plaza.
Texas, the 28th state. The 28th state.
Oh, nice, nice, nice. Okay.
You
Yep.
see that?
28, 17,
So,
definitely.
so Elvis, yeah, so Elvis was 28, Trump was 17. and um, and from hold on, let me get my bearings here. Okay, and I told you from Trump's birthday to JFK's death was 17 years, and because he was 17 years old that day, I mean that year, right? That JFK died, and uh, and from Elvis's birthday to JFK's birthday, he was 28, right? That's because that's how old they were, 28 and 17. And Texas was the 28th state, Ohio's the 17th state, which is where I'm saying Trump's gonna get his head wound. But if you go from the birthday of JFK, from JFK's birth in 1917, it's 17 years from that day to Elvis's birthday. So Elvis is the actual 17, 28, 28, 17. And that's how old Elvis and Trump were in 63. So from JFK's birth to Elvis's birth is 17 years. From Elvis's birth to JFK's death is 28. And that's how old they were in 1963 when he was killed. And that's Dallas, Texas. I mean, Texas, 28th state. Ohio's going to be the 17th state. You see how crazy that is?
Yeah, let me add something to this because some people who are hearing this who don't have the big picture need to go back and watch a lot of your videos. This is not something you can just.
Wait, one last thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
And he's 45. And it equals 45.
Oh,
17 and
2817, which is part of this code. And
It's 45.
many people, historians and others, have different levels of, seriousness with which they take this, but there are these well-documented connections between the assassination story of Lincoln and the assassination story of JFK. And there are connections between the Lincoln that even connect to Trump that we can point to. But my point is that these are well-known connections. Ford Theater, Lincoln killed, Ford Lincoln, Kennedy killed. And these are very nuanced. When you get back and forth, you're like, wow, okay, this is like obviously to me scripting. And these connections with Obama are just pretty much throughout all of the programming. It's very consistent. So I mentioned the Man in Full, which has a Obama character as the mayor of Chicago, who beats the Trump guy. But in Leave the World Behind, it takes place in zip code 11963, like 1963, and it was released on 11/22, JFK's assassination date. And it's very notable that this was Obama's production company, Higher Ground. So you have an Obama movie released on JFK's death date that has the year
Right.
encoded into it very obviously. So I'm just pointing out here that we cannot separate this because it's consistent, the Obama-Trump dynamic in this whole story. And if you look at the ritualistic, televised, fictional versions of Trump being killed, it's pretty consistent as well. Civil War,
Yeah.
Fallout, it's pretty consistent, and it's like, okay, so this is not
Yeah.
coincidence theory. This is meta script breakdown.
Yeah, that's a great connection with the Leave the World Behind. Yeah. And here's one last thing. So what is my other predictions? You know that I'm saying Trump gets his head on August 4th. So in Ohio? What's my other prediction?
That Seattle gets Oppenheimered on 6/11.
Yeah, but when I say Seattle, remember I told you it's going to be collateral damage. So I'm saying all of the west side of Washington. Get out of all of the west side of Washington. So it's going to be on June 11th, right? 6/11, right?
Right.
And so here's another connection to Trump and JFK. JFK was born in Massachusetts, and Trump was born in New York, right?
Got it?
What are the states? 6 and 11.
Oh, I see. Yep. Again, and this for anybody who
Okay.
says that you're going too far, somebody says this guy goes far. It's like, no, we don't go too far. The level of programming is granular. It's nuanced. Washington, 42nd state, Space Needle, 42 seconds from the elevator ride from the bottom to the top. The UFO is 42 meters wide. UFO does add to 42. Like, no, this is deep programming, and there's a logic to it. This is, in fact, deciphering. So we're not going too far. We're just pointing out facts.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't make up stuff like this. It's impossible. I mean, Bro, I could show you something I haven't shown the channel yet. That's why I don't want to give it away. There's something I could show you that'll literally, like literally knock your socks off. But I can't show it yet because I have to show the channel first. It's mind blowing. You know,
Well, please post a link
and
to your channel below because we got like 130 people in chat.
I don't know how to do that.
Oh,
I don't know how to do
I'll
that. I
do it
don't know
then.
how to do
I'll
that.
go ahead and do it now. And I'm doing this because we have, I believe, maybe 150 people right now, if not more, listening. And if somebody wants to get like a better idea or a clearer concept, they're going to have to watch some of your videos. And if you're going to release something new that you haven't told anybody yet, um, I want to catch it. And so I'm going to put a link to your channel below. So I'll just spam it a couple of times.
Yeah, I appreciate that, bro. Anyway, man, I appreciate you listening. And unless you have any more questions, I'll just exit because I know you. I don't want to bug you anymore.
No, no, this is great. In fact, I don't see any questions in the chat right now. I put a link to your channel below, and you definitely provided a lot of interesting info to really build onto this, especially this Georgia Guidestones connection. So yeah, appreciate the call very much, and I'll be following your channel as well. I put a link below. It's Jurassic. Is it the one that says Jurassic Liars, Elvis, Seattle 611?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, I tested it. Yeah, that's the one.
Okay, great. Well, hopefully a few people jump over there, and
All right,
I'll catch up with you soon. Thanks again for calling.
all right. Take care, man. Take care.
Likewise.
Bye bye.
All right, everyone. That is Garrow from channel Jurassic Liars, Elvis, Seattle 611. This is interesting because, again, we're talking about Brandon MDM says, bring on the head wound. Well, let me show you the Georgia Guidestones from the top. We talk about symbolism. You know, the symbolism is not just numbers and colors and archetypes, but it's also shapes, and it's in the architecture specifically. Last night, we were talking about the architecture of the One World Trade Tower and how it looks specifically like a pyramid when you go to the base of it. From afar, it looks like a syringe. Now, if we look at the Georgia Guidestones from above, and this is interesting because, okay, this is intriguing. Before it was blown up, there was this Google image of it that was going around the internet where it appeared to be a blood stain on the side of the Georgia Guidestone. And it's consistent with the head wound symbolism here that we're drawing your attention to. So here it is from above. This is a Google image. And as you can see, it's a skull and crossbones, and it's got blood on the side. Very interesting. And then here it again, another picture. It looks like someone put blood up there. So what does this mean? And it's really interesting when you get into the nuance, the symbolism of the weight of the stones. And that date, that whole week was crazy. It was crazy for me. It was crazy on the world stage. 7/4, you had Robert Cremo shooting up a 4th of July parade, 4 of 7. He had the 47 tattooed on the side of his head. He was obsessed with Oswald. He had been attending Trump rallies. His mom's shopping at Target while he's shooting up a parade, which is hilarious because you see her with the Target bags with the Target symbol, which connects in a number of ways to the script of Full Metal Jacket with Joker, who represents JFK with the target on the side of his head. But the 47 thing is a huge part of this story. But we were looking at that event. And then 2 days later, the Georgia Guidestones get blown up, which surprised me because I thought these things were supposed to withstand the apocalypse. So after we melt everything down, we start all over again. We figure out, hey, this is how we do it. Keep the population here. Don't do this. Don't do that. The Georgia Guidestones were meant to guide humanity in some post-apocalyptic future, and yet they get destroyed by a cherry bomb. Some guy on a bicycle. But now, on the 7/6, I mean 7/7, no 7/8, I think it was 7/8, Shinzo Abe was shot. He was JFK'd. Shinzo, and that's again Abe, like Abe Lincoln. It's a Abe. In a way, this is an Abe Lincoln connection, and he was on 7/8. On 7/8, he was killed, shot twice. Fake killed. Squibby Abe. We can see the squib inside of his jacket. Like they wouldn't have had him in a bulletproof vest with that homemade gun. It wouldn't have worked if it was real. And in fact, I think that was the day that I was. This is unrelated, but I was stabbed in the head by someone in a psychosis with some scissors, and my right eye was totally bloodshot and red for a few days. I thought that's okay. Let me go and hit up your comments. Oh yeah, and also I want to say thanks to Upside Down Guy, who has gifted some memberships. So we've got the Texas Goat Radio Show, has a blue wrench. Mary J. Blige, excuse me. Chair Folders United, Rowan, Lady Woodall, thanks again, Upside Down Guy. Texas Goat Radio Show. I've listened to that podcast recently. Oh, that's right. I've been following this whole thing. It is incredible. This thing with Owen Benjamin and Bertaria and the controversy, invented or not, but whatever it is, it's it's really just internet intrigue and accusations fly. People say, "Oh, it's a cult," and it's like, well, maybe it is a cult, but not all cults are destructive. Like I hear him, I heard Owen Benjamin describing that how he's been described as a crazy cult leader, and it's like, why run from that title? Because cult isn't necessarily a bad thing, and you can make the case that Nasatology is a cult, mainstream media is a cult, wokeism's a cult, trutherism's a cult. So the question is it a destructive cult? And there's a distinction between destructive cults and constructive ones. I mean, cult culture, they have a bad rap because of Charles Manson, and I think it's because the state wanted to destroy any kind of organic groups of people gathering together for constructive purposes. They want to break that up and demonize it. So, like the IPS, and this is why I bring this up, the IPS, the Infinite Plane Society think tank, was considered a cult. You know how many people use that term in a derogatory way to call us a cult? And I was like, you know what? Well, we are a cult, and you guys are too. But whose cult is destructive and whose is constructive? Well, our cult is based on adopting skepticism, reason, and logic when faced with a ubiquitous liar that filters humanity's collective perceptions. Mainstream media is the de facto world state church, and it's a liar. So I don't take the term cult to be a bad thing, but that's where people are looking at this thing with Owen Ben, and I tend to not trust what I see when people are very heavily invested in hate watching somebody. And I do remember the Daily Beast was saying that he was building the new Ruby Ridge. So it seems like there's claws out for the guy. So do I think that anybody's obsessed? I don't know. It's not about obsession. It's about investigation and journalism, and I think you have to be thorough. I mean, I don't really listen to him much. I don't have time to listen to a lot of live streamers, but I do catch clips. And the other day I was listening, and I heard him talk about the homeless tweaker shelter, and I suggested this joke was stolen by Jake Gibson. And why does this matter? It's a bad joke. It's a stolen meme. And what's the reason why it's a bad thing? And I think it's because we're looking at people in a competitive environment where these memes have value, and comedians are constantly trying to be the first ones to put a joke out there. And so if you're going to claim, oh, well, Dave Chappelle stole my joke, he doesn't have plausible deniability, well, then you could argue that Owen Benjamin didn't have plausible deniability with regard to Jake Gibson's joke, which was 2 years old, printed on thousands of t-shirts, and more importantly, we're talking about two big fish in a small pool. I mean, how many people create content for Flat Earth? How many Flat Earth comedians are there? There's Owen Benjamin and Jake the A-hole and Math Powerland. So you have three comedians. So it's like, what is the deniability here if he's going to say he didn't steal the joke? And so I didn't accuse him of stealing the joke in a spirit of malice, but I brought it up because I noticed that one of the criticisms leveled against him is that he's farming other people's content and recycling it, regurgitating it, and I didn't think that was true. But anyway, I thought it was worth confronting. But I do think the word cult is certainly overused. And having looked at this, I wonder, what's worse? I mean, there's a bigger cult of Owen Benjamin haters than there are of, quote, supporters, bears, whatever they call themselves. And that's kind of a strange thing in itself. Hate watching anti-fans. And I've had anti-fans. My biggest anti-fan tried to purge me from the internet, harass my family, has consistently, invasion of privacy, stalking, cyber stalking, all the history. We all know it here because we're witnessing the effects of my lawsuit against this person. So I know what it's like to be on the receiving end of it, of being misrepresented. But that's the price you pay for being public. And also, I don't think anybody who's a content creator should play the victim card if they have taken stances that they know are meant to stir things up. Shock value, for example. I believe he was using a lot of racially derogatory terms for like people in India or blacks. I'm like, okay, well, I don't know if you can protect yourself from that in this day and age. I mean, this is the age of wokeism, and people will dig through tweets, and it's like, I don't know. Not that I care. I mean, it's not my business. I'm not a comedian, and comedians are, I don't know. That's a whole other arena. I've been interested though and the only reason he came into my field of awareness is he hosted a flat Earth conference, and I noticed that there's a lot of comedians who are being placed in positions to introduce to broader audiences these fringe ideas. And I often wonder, are comedians used for, I don't know, almost like not necessarily gatekeeping, but limited hangout operations, tracking certain ideas that are like beyond the areas of acceptable discourse. They have a certain function in society, but I'm not invested in that whole thing, so I don't know enough about it. But I do know that Texas Goat Radio Show is one of the content creators who are addressing this story. And I don't want to say too much because I don't know. I have to verify. All I know is what I've read. And there are people who are like, well, he got money from people. And it's like, well, you realize content creators get donations for the content they're creating to create more content. Like it's considered intrinsically valuable to the people making donations. And the haters will say, oh, the donors are being ripped off. It's like it's voluntary. And they don't need you to advocate for how they spend their money. So I don't really side with the critics either way. And the critics, at some point, it becomes like an anti-fan, very toxic thing. I wonder what the overall beef is, if somebody's behind it. Okay, moving on. And look, I do believe in the free market of ideas. I think that just because somebody's opinions are rancid, I don't think they need to be punished. And that's the beauty of the internet. You can build your own platform. You can go out in the woods and have your comedy events there. You don't have to compete for the same air as the mainstream media. And I don't either. Like, I don't care about what the mainstream says about all these fake shootings, fake terror attacks. I'm never going to capitulate and say that fake dead people matter. I'm never going to give it the benefit of the doubt. I'm not trying to curry favor with the MSM where it's like some people, you see people do this. You have these like people who are molding themselves to try to, position themselves to be taken seriously. It's like I don't want to be taken seriously by clown world. I mean, what does it take to be taken seriously by them? Put your head in the same box. Skyfish says the target symbol on that shooting plate is a double entendre, in my opinion. The actual target esoteric symbol. Oh, okay. That symbol, yeah, the target symbol. Now, I was connecting the target symbol on Robert Cremo's mother's shopping bag to the target on the side of Joker in Full Metal Jacket, played by Matthew Modine. And interestingly, and I correlate this to the Trump hat with the 45, 47 on the side. And add 45 and 47, 9/11, and 4,547 happens to be the 616th prime, another mark of the beastie number. But the position of the number, like the 47 tattoo on the kid's head, it all relates here. But interestingly, Matthew Modine, who played Joker, resurfaced in Stranger Things. And there's a scene where the number 116 is mentioned specifically because of the coordinates where he's at, where he gets shot. And he's like on the ground, like looking crucified. But we'll get into this stuff later. I mean, I remember looking at this stuff closely a couple of years ago. But the main point of it is that, yeah, the target symbol, the 47s were all introduced there. And it was just obviously, this is theater. I didn't take any, it didn't look real. There was nothing real about it. But it was just loaded with symbolism. Okay, moving on here. Ears Up says kicking the can down the road. You're talking about JL. Again, I disagree. I don't think that's his intention. His intention is not to predict the future. Although there is some, look, you can use predictive programming as a predictive model if you know what you're looking at. That's just the way it is. In fact, in that movie Leave the World Behind, part of the movie, it's like part one, part two. One part of it is called The Curve, where one of the characters talks about his job, which is to predict trends. And when he's talking about the curve, it's in the context of a conversation where the character played by Julia Roberts says that we live, referring to the internet, which had then been blacked out, we were living within a collectively agreed upon delusion. And if you look at this collectively agreed upon delusion and how scripted it is, you can read the curve. Like it's like reading the stitches on the fastball. You can know what's coming. That's how I predicted space junk with some specificity at times. That's how we called 3/11/2020 as the starting point for a ground zero global event centered in Seattle. These are not supernatural predictions or prophecies, but rather just looking at this as if they're scripting the news and it's following certain narrative themes and trajectories, if they preface every major event with a lot of movies to saturate your mind about what they're about to do, then you can look at the movies to see what's coming next. You know, you're playing Modern Warfare 3 on 10.6, immersed in a simulated war environment. Wake up on 10.7, millions and millions of people who are participating in this game wake up to see the 10.7 attacks. You have many examples of Netflix foreshadowing reality, and more, there's concurrent programming, where what is on Netflix right now, more often than not, relates to what is presently happening in the news. How does that happen? Do they have a crystal ball? No, just look to the ownership of Netflix, the original founder, CEO, co founder. Blood relative to Edward Bernays and Sigmund Freud. We're talking about mind control, looking at the masses as an entity that can be manipulated as one. And then Sigmund Freud, they know what's under the hood. They know our psychological profiles inside and out. These days, Netflix recently purchased your browser histories and DMs from your Facebook accounts. So this is just deep mind control. And it is nuanced. It's finely tuned. You have the Roe v. Wade leak a couple years ago, and then I turn on Game of Thrones, and the queen is against her will being forced to give birth because they need the male child. So the most powerful woman in the country doesn't have bodily autonomy, just as the Roe v. Wade leak happens. And I'm like, look, I'm trying to watch something other than the news, and I'm watching the news when I'm watching the Game of Thrones. How did they know? How did they know about the leak when they produced that episode? And I can point to numerous examples. And so I coined the phrase concurrent programming, where it's not predictive like years in advance or months in advance, but it's real time. And that's more of a giveaway than predictive programming. Predictive programming, like Lucky Guess, they read the zeitgeist. Concurrent programming, no. And when you look at the specific political messaging of it, now this is high-tech propaganda and marketing. It's as simple as that. Upside Down Guy handed out 10 wrenches to RJ, Wee, Deborah, Busy56, Cameron Kaplan, Sign of Privilege. Welcome to the IPR Blue Wrench Lodge. Friendly Ghost received a wrench. James, Jimbo, and Forlorn Hope. RJ needs a wrench. I'll make sure to hand out wrenches to people here very soon. If you're in the chat and you comment, I will hand one out. So the history of the wrench, just so you know, at the very beginning of this channel, we were afflicted with trolls, and we were just trying to form a think tank based around ideas that apparently the powers that be don't want us discussing. And one of the things we did is we decided to gang up, and everybody became a mod. To become a mod, you had to step into the chat and say something. The instant you did, one of us, usually Toto Cult, fastest wrench in the West, would ban you. Insta-ban for every newbie. Then, after that night's live stream, I would have the newbie email me at infiniteplainsociety@gmail.com and give me their link, and I would give them a wrench. And it was simple. To get a wrench, you had to email me. And then I had this list of people on an email list who are all part of this inner group who are now verified, vetted. It was just basic vetting, sort of like a hazing ritual, a little initiation, spend a night in the dungeon. But the point of it was we had vetted a group of people who were serious about our conversations, who weren't trying to bring in religious agendas, identity politics, or any other garbage. This was just a philosophical group that needed to be protected from all the distractions. And so the blue wrench was the idea of an armed society is a polite society. We were able to have more calm and rational conversations because we kept the disruptors out. So the wrench is a symbol of order, if anything. And it's a tool of deconstruction. So the wrench has become something of a symbol here. At the same time, every wrench holder adopted the same avatar. We all took the penguin and made it our avatar, which created this like wall of penguins with wrenches, which a lot of noobs found a bit, I guess, intimidating, and we had a lot of people mad at us for being exclusive. And but the thing is, we have to be exclusive. It's quality, not quantity here. And that's one of the reasons why right now we're engaging in an active quarantine from Trutherville. Psyops Matter says, "Hey Tim, did you like that Sandy Hook lottery winners video I sent you?" Yeah, I played it a couple days ago. A Fakeologist played it. A few others have played it. And yeah, for those who don't know what we're talking about, many of the officers and people involved in the Sandy Hook production were seemingly lucky in being paid big after the fact through other means. Like they all won the lottery. You wonder why they're all laughing. You try to keep a straight face after Ed McMahon comes by and drops off a big ass check. You're going to be grinning. It doesn't matter. Your house could be burning down. You're going to be smiling. You got millions of dollars. Okay, we have a few more minutes here. Mango says, "You all have a great night. I'm tuning in." Defrag Unplug says, "Been here since Nipsey." Hey, thank you for joining, and I'll hand out the wrench here. Neat Triop says, "Sweet." And let me play this clip. When our channel started, we put a billboard up that said "Research Flat Earth." And this was like the first time the subject broke mainstream. And I just want to point out that we did this because we wanted to get the meme out of the controlled opposition echo chambers. And this was on CBS.
This was just unveiled just yesterday, in fact. This billboard, a digital billboard unveiled yesterday, and it's calling into question a theory most of us have accepted, that the Earth, of course, is round. But those behind this billboard say them down, and it's just 100 feet above their heads.
No. I think it's pretty ridiculous.
They're missing a lot.
Sandwiched between two insurance ads is this bold 3-word billboard: Research Flat Earth.
I know about these folks.
I can't believe this is for real.
That they have some very hard, concrete evidence that they've convinced themselves that the Earth is flat.
We believe this is something that needs to be talked about.
Math Powerland purchased the...
Now, there's a story behind this, why we used the name of the crybaby who didn't want us to do the billboard, who wanted to control the conversation. But they called me to ask me why I put the billboard up or why we did it. And what I explained here, I just jumped right into the conversation of the space station.
Is flat. He says NASA's pictures and spacewalks showing a curved Earth are all made up.
We believe it's all faked. All of it's in front of CGI, augmented virtual reality. The spacewalks are, for the most part, done in desalinated water tanks.
They're stuck in like 1492.
Actually, more like 330 BC.
The Greek math.
Anyway, flat Earth billboard turning heads. That was a few years ago, but I'm just pointing out that our channel's always had this as an objective. And because of this, because of the structure, because of our wrenches, because we've turned this into a think tank, we made it really easy to, manifest these types of things. It took us just a couple of days. We decided, hey, this would be a good idea. And we made it happen. And we're going to do more interesting things in the coming days, but nothing I can talk about live here. I have a lot of notes I didn't get a chance to go over. I think I had a number of comments I want to get to as well. Upside Down Guy says, "Tim, are you so scared of atrazine that you can't go outside in the grass and look up?" And I appreciate the support there. All the support to the think tank keeps this thing going. And again, tomorrow, it's going to be a big deal. It's going to be the fakeologist conversation about it's open phones. I don't want to put any constraints on it, but we are going to take calls. A lot of people are mad at me about clouds, the cloud shouters, but I made them agree to the stipulation, simply that if you're going to call in to argue in favor of cloud phobia, you have to bring your own evidence. I want to see your samples. I want to see your soil samples, whatever you've taken from the air. I'd like to see your research. I don't want references to vague government documents that were leaked that somebody read somewhere, because that's not evidence. Okay, let me go ahead and take this call really quick. We have a couple minutes. Hey, what's up, caller?
Hey, Tim. Hey, You were talking about Colts earlier. You're like, oh, we're passing out blue wrenches, and it sounded like kind of culty. Everyone gets a wrench that follows you. But I don't know. I just kind of thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah,
But
I think it is.
I
It is
talk
a
about
cult. It is a cult. I'm saying it is a cult, but it's just not a destructive cult.
everything can be a cult. Everything could be a cult. Like people that collect Coca-Cola memorabilia. I mean, is that a cult?
Yeah, or
Like
furries, Trekkies.
people that collect magic cards. Yeah, those are all cults. Like almost everything's a cult. People that go to the same dive bar every night. I mean, is that a cult?
Exactly. And
Just about everything.
so then the question
But
becomes: is it a
I
bad
thought
cult? And in your opinion, is the Beartopia cult going to be the next Jonestown, or are the critics just haters?
no, I think he had good intentions behind it, but I think he's he's uh kind of greedy and selfish and narcissistic to where it's not going to work out properly. But he is very open. But the fact that his whole Ruby Ridge thing in Idaho, like he should just sell that one and just invest all the land into the next one. And like this next little crowd fund in Missouri sounds a lot better. But that's if you're a Texas show radio host and just watching Owen Benjamin every day and like that guy makes all his content is just Owen Benjamin, Owen Benjamin. It's crazy that someone would make a YouTube channel just focusing on one person.
Are
That
they
just
are
sounds
they
crazy.
paying? Like, is there a paywall?
But
Are the haters paying to watch? Like, pay to hate watch? It's crazy. I have one thing too I want to bring up is that
they
I was raising
they
money
tip each other.
after the billboard. We got the attention of Mad Mike Hughes, World's Greatest Daredevil, and he said he wanted to put our message on his rocket. And he needed parts. He needed to build the thing. He needed to fund it. And so this channel raised more than $8,000 for that. And this was in the New Yorker. But while I was raising money, I was being accused of being a cult leader, a fraud. They said I was spending the money on drugs. And they were just basically tearing me down. And a lot of people left the IPS. A lot of people just assumed I was, because somebody said, oh, he's just going to take your money and it's a fake rocket and it's CGI. And I had to deal with people and their hatred for
Did
about a
did
year and a
did
half.
Mr. Eric Dubay ever call you out as a cult leader or as a shill?
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. They all do.
Yeah.
And after Mike
Apparently he calls
launched,
everyone a cult leader.
he launched his rocket. He set a Guinness Book of World Records. And if you think about it, he outdid NASA. Because this is a private space program, and he actually launched himself. It wasn't fake. And the thing is, after he did it, nobody came to say, hey, congrats, I was wrong. Nobody said, hey, I'm sorry that I accused you of fraud. Nobody did. And so I'm just saying, I don't trust very biased people who are bearing witness against somebody. I have to continue my investigation, but I am familiar with some of these channels because I've been following the Reddit, and it's kind of nitpicky, but I'm I'm not trying to defend. I don't know how deep the cult goes, but I'm
Yeah,
just pointing out that.
cults are great. Cults are great. There's a Pokemon cult called Pokemon Go, where like people get their mobile phones out and they do augmented reality type stuff. And right now, there's like a Pokemon Go Fest in New York City, and their logo that YouTube keeps showing me in between videos is like uh, basically like a triangle appears above New York City, and then all these aliens type space junk falls down of like emoticons. Like all these emojis fall down basically out of space. So it's like space junks falling over New York City.
Interesting, fascinating. And I
And
and you've probably heard me
and
compare
and but
Pokemon to the space station, right? People say,
I don't know about that, but their last main one of their last in the couple of years, their last Pokemon game, they had it was like an open world game, which a lot of people like, but they had space junk falling randomly, and it's like kind of like loot to where you'll see in the distance space junk fall, and you'll go and pick up shards of space junk, and you can collect it and make new items and stuff to where
interesting.
and then I think it's called like space junk or whatever. But like Pokemon's all about space junk falling and all that stuff.
I had not heard that, and I'm interested. I brought up this connection because I had been saying to people for years, they're like, you just use the app and you can see the space station. And I said, well, the app will show you Pokemon. Doesn't mean he's there. And this is part of the trick where they're having everyone filter their experience through the screen. And if they can have your eyes glued to the screen 24/7, they can augment your reality, as they already have with every lie and superstition, hyperstition, and lie that you've accepted. But they're going to digitally they're going to visually lie to us consistently with these augmented reality apps. Wait till everybody has an Oculus. Then it's like, yeah, I saw the space junk fall. I saw the space station fall. Whatever they're doing.
Yeah, that's how you're going to see. That's how you're going to be able to see the aliens with augmented reality VR glasses. And the only way you can see the aliens that are real is if you have the augmented reality. It's like They Live glasses, but it's VR glasses.
Yeah, exactly. Fascinating how they pulled this off, and I think it's going to work. I think it is going to work. We've reached a critical mass of people who are 100% programmed, reality impaired, and they will accept as real whatever they're told to accept. And then, not to mention, just the sea of irrelevance, the sea of noise, the noise to signal ratio. It's not looking good for objectivity.
My only thing, like you hate the ISS and like transits and people see it. The only thing I could possibly think of to give it any credibility is they sent up like a huge stadium-sized weather balloon with a big satellite thing that they're calling the ISS, and it got stuck up in the atmosphere, and it's just rotating constantly, and they can't figure out how to. They can't even figure out how to shoot it down yet. Like they'd probably been thinking about like how can they get it down. Like it's probably just stuck up there. That's why they thought like they gave the ISS like a 20-year lifespan, and now it's going on like 30 or something. Or, I don't know. They upgraded the lifespan of the
I
ISS.
might have accepted that, but now there's a Chinese space station, and so it's like, well, how do you explain that? And people say they see it. And then you have Starlink satellites. They say they see that. And if it is a balloon-borne thing, like a stratospheric balloon, it doesn't move at the rate that would correlate with what the app shows. So I'm still on team simulation. I don't think that they can fake it with a physical prop. I think it's simply a CGI overlay. The ISS is as fake as the 9/11 planes.
Well, the footage that they show is obviously sketchy, but when people just go out there with video cameras that aren't connected to the internet and then they upload the memory card footage and show that something passed up there, kind of weird.
Nobody's done it. And moreover, I mean, look, I would give you, I would raise money for this. I'd pay someone to do this. If you can go outside and do a selfie video and have the ISS, the space station, go over your head,
You know how
I'll give you $100. Have the ISS fly over your head. It's easy. Use the app. It's as easy as finding a Pokemon.
Well, you have to zoom in to see it. So like you can't have yourself in the photo with the moon in the background at the same time and be in the same resolution. Like the photo wouldn't work.
You have to zoom in to see it, but then how can you see it with your eyes? All these people say, I watched it go across the sky from horizon to horizon. So a lot of people say,
I'm still lacking on seeing it. I'm still lacking on seeing it. Like it comes around, it's like once every 2 weeks, once every 3 weeks, and it's just so. I have no motivation to go out and look up and see it. Like
that's what I mean.
mock you
Money,
for
money.
not touching grass.
We will use money. We'll pay
I
for
mock
you.
you for not touching grass, and I don't even go outside and touch grass. So I don't know. That's about all I wanted to talk about.
Okay, well, hey, you might be right. Truth Hurts says like a balloon that deflates over time. I remember deflating a balloon. You let it go and it flies around, and maybe that's what's happening. Anyway, thanks for the call, and
Well, no, wait, real quick. I'm saying they sent it up on a balloon and it popped, and what they did, like it froze, and it made like an equilibrium to where it stayed up in the atmosphere, and then it started shooting across, maybe like not like the firmament, but like the upper atmosphere, because there's so many layers of the atmosphere. So like above the ozone, like above what they're calling
Okay,
space,
like a
like right there in
celestial
between.
conveyor belt.
Maybe because okay, you know how you can set a leaf on a river and it'll float around? Like that's basically what they did. They set the ISS as a leaf on the perfect uh, space in the atmosphere, and it's just sitting there, and it caught of the current, and now it's just spinning around in the circles and now they can't get it down. I don't think they can get
Okay,
it
well,
down.
this, by the
I
way,
think it was an accident.
you've stumbled on it. This is, in fact, how they say it stays up there. So it doesn't float. It's orbiting, it's falling around the Earth. But the reason it doesn't fall down onto the Earth is that it's skipping off of the residual atmosphere, like rocks skipping on a lake. And whenever it gets to lose its momentum, it has one of these resupply modules come and bump it. And those periodic bumps are what keep it from losing its velocity, and then it maintains its stability with gyros. But they say that it's skipping off the residual
Yeah.
atmosphere, not the dome.
I don't know. I'll listen to you guys tomorrow and think I'll just take it easy, man.
All right, thanks for the
Happy
call.
Independence Day.
Yeah. Oh yeah, happy
Or
Independence
whatever.
Day, happy
Later.
birthday, George W. Bush. All right, thanks for the calls and comments. We've had a lot of comments, a lot of new Blue Wrench Lodge members. And if you're Blue Wrench Lodge members, you're going to be getting members only videos in the form of the IPS morning deprograms, which I record after my jog. I didn't get to go out this morning, but it'll be a regular thing. And I've set up a video production corner here in my office. And of course, we cover a lot of different topics. The various things we cover tonight are mostly, I guess, we want to stick to the Georgia Guidestones. We go into some random areas, but big development, of course. Anniversary of the destruction of the Georgia Guidestones and the 76th anniversary of Dubya, who was 76 at the time, but now he's 78. And the Georgia Guidestones do look like the hospital where Elvis died, which collapsed on 6/11, or rather 11/6. And then we talked about the Georgia Guidestones looking like skull and bones. It reportedly had blood on part of it, and people thought it was a blood sacrifice. And then that's where it was blown up later, a couple years after that. And tomorrow we'll get deeper into the fake shark attack, the RV explosion. I have a link here that was posted, I think, by Lean Dion about Dave Murphy, another 9/11 witness. How many 9/11 witnesses do we know? After a layoff, I turned down a job offer on the 40th floor of Tower 1 and worked across the Hudson River and watched in disbelief the events of 9/11 at close range. So that's two Daves. We have twin Daves who claim to have seen planes hitting the buildings. Again, how is that accomplished? This is how the trick works. Before I go here, really, it's pretty simple. It's you use the CGI to augment the reality, special effects on TV. And to corroborate with that, you have eyewitnesses on the ground. 50 people screaming, I saw a plane, I saw a plane. Well, these are all false witnesses. That's what crisis actors are. You know, you understand that they claim they saw a shooter. How much different is it for them to claim they saw a plane? It's a very simple thing. It's a magic trick. The world stage is a magic show. Conscious Daughter says tomorrow is 777, seventh day of the week, and seventh month. Yeah, it seems very psyopy. I'm getting some psyopy vibes. We'll find out tomorrow for sure. I mean, I'm going to be here live, so we'll talk about it real time as always. And you have to say our analysis is somewhat prescient. The fact that we're looking at Megaopolis as another reference to the Tower of Babel falling, and the 9/11 connection to that movie was discussed. And then he talks about the Russian satellites falling to Earth. And then on the news, like a Russian satellite explodes and the ISS has to go into cover. Anyway, we're constantly noticing the back and forth between fiction and quote real and movie references preceding what happens in real life. And, you know, it's life imitates psyops, it seems. Or the scripted reality is predictable when you recognize that it's all predicated on repetition and marketing and propaganda. Messianic Charlatan says Israeli dancers had to be fake because saw planes. Right. That's I would say a red herring. There's so many red herrings, but I think one of the big ones to look at is one of the big clues is Gelatin B. I think Gelatin B and the Fight Club connections. You know, in Fight Club, he's talking about gelatin explosives wrapped around the pillars of buildings, and right behind them are the Century City Twin Towers, designed by the same architect who did the Twin Towers. And Gelatin B was the art group hanging out like on the 91st floor through the year 2000, where they were creating the scenes that would later show on 9/11 to be jumpers and people at the windows. Ollie Goering says dancing Israelis, dancing nurses. Yeah, there may be something to it symbolically. The dancing nurses, that has never been fully explained. That has never been fully explained. That is some strange voodoo. Anyway, we've been talking about cults tonight and how this is a cult. And the Ball Earth is a cult. And our cult is better than their cult. Anyway, thanks for joining. We'll continue this conversation tomorrow. Sign up for the newsletter below.
A bunch of important numbers. 42. A bunch of important